Everybody, and I appreciate you spending time with us today. And I appreciate the opportunity John has given us to do this group and to speak to you today. So, Rocky Mountaineer has been doing the Canadian Rockies for over 30 years. So, unfortunately, we celebrated our 30th anniversary a year before last, and we didn't move our trains around very much that year. But yeah, we're back up and running as of late last season, and it just feels so good to be out into the mountain air and exploring these areas once again. Now, the itinerary that John picked is what we call First Passage to the West. So the departure is August 21st to the 28th of this year, which is a great time to go because a lot of us are going to be escaping the hot weather in August and going up to the refreshing higher altitudes. And it's just also is kind of the start of the season, the fall season in the Rockies. So I just think it's a wonderful time to travel up there. So what we're going to do is we're going to depart from Vancouver. And I know many of you have been to Vancouver before. It's one of my favorite cities. The downtown area is on a peninsula, and your hotel is right in the middle of this peninsula. So it's within walking distance of so many things and activities that you can do. We're staying at the Sheraton Wall Center. And you can see their tallest tower here. Look at those beautiful views. I mean, it's such a spectacular city because you're surrounded by mountains and you're looking out onto the sound. So there's so many wonderful activities there. The day you fly in, you're kind of on your own except for check-in. And then the second day, we're going to put you on a little tour to the North Shore. And the North Shore is across the sound from downtown. And we'll be going up to a beautiful state park, provincial park, where they have the Capilano Suspension Bridge. So we'll spend some time there. It's got some great little museums there. If you really want to go across the bridge and explore treetops, you have enough time to travel from tree to tree where you'll see wildlife that you never see from the ground level, right? You know, I'm talking about primarily birds, but it's really quite fascinating. And then we'll travel on to Grouse Mountain. From Grouse Mountain, you have the most spectacular view over the city, the surrounding mountains, and oh my gosh, just the whole sound out there. So there's no view like that in the world. And if you are adventurous, yes, we'll put you on these wonderful cars to take you to the top where the view is absolutely optimum. So after that day, you have the rest of the day and the evening, and then in the morning, what we're going to do, you'll be staying in your hotel at the Sheraton, and we're going to ask you to pack up your bags, leave them inside your room, and lock your room and come down to the transfer bus. In the meantime, while you're still in your room, or possibly right after you leave, we're going to be pulling your bags and we're going to bring them down to the motor coach, and you're going to be whisked off a couple of miles to our train station. We have our own train station there, so you're not going to be mixing with the general public, which I think is important these days. But seeing off the train in Vancouver, which is where our home office is, it's always an event. Our employees park at the station for free, and we shuttle them into the office downtown so they don't have to pay for parking. So they all hang around and see the train off, which is a lot of fun. So we are going to have you identify your bags at the train station. When you arrive, we'll pull them off the motor coach, and then we're going to transfer them to a truck. And the truck is going to take off for your next destination, which is Kamloops. So welcome aboard. What a great train experience. So What it's like on the train is, okay, it's an all daylight train. The reason for that, we never sleep on the train because we're not traveling that far. And if we were to travel at night, you would just miss so much in the darkness. So you'll be traveling by day. You can see on the left, there is a picture of your Gold Leaf car. Everything on the train is inclusive. So you'll be getting breakfast and lunch daily, 3 courses for each meal. And each train car has its own kitchen. So it's quite a great culinary experience. And you'll be traveling along with your host, who will be pointing out the sites along the way. They will be serving you. And because I said it's all inclusive, you know, we've got full bar on the train with alcoholic and non-alcoholic beverages. We have snacks throughout the day, and you're very well fed at your meals. Now, at the end of the day, we'll be pulling into a train station, and we have it so well choreographed that the train pulls into the station and a motor coach pulls up right beside your train car, and a host hops off the motor coach and onto the train car, and they will hand out your room keys as you're disembarking the train. So you're getting your room key, you're taking 5 steps off the train onto a waiting motor coach. The motor coach will whisk you off to your hotel, and you can bypass the front desk. And let me tell you, this is really important when you get to a hotel like Chateau Lake Louise, where there can be long lines at the front desk. But you'll bypass that, go to your room, open your door, and voila, there's your bag sitting there waiting for you. So we try to make the train travel as easy as possible for you. So I have my nightmares about boarding high-speed trains in Europe and trying to get myself and my bags on before it starts again. So anyway, we recognize that and want to make it easy. So here's a look at your custom designed bi-level coach. So what you're seeing at the top is where everyone sits. And if you've ever traveled on a train car in Alaska, I know a lot of the cruise lines have their own bi-level cars like this. Ours are quite a bit more luxurious, and we hold fewer people on the same size car. So upstairs we can sit, depending on the car, but up to 70 people. And then downstairs, where I'm pointing on the left-hand side, that is a large kitchen. And then where you see the windows, that's the dining area. And then on the other side of that, it's actually behind it, there is a staircase and a lift for going up and down. And there are 2 restrooms. And look at this. This is an outdoor viewing platform. So that is just absolutely great. So you can get out, get some fresh air and some, you know, really wonderful pictures. I have found if you're traveling upstairs and you put your camera right up against the glass, you can really get beautiful photos. So keep that in mind while you're traveling. And here's a really good look at the inside of that coach. So this is looking forward, and you can see all the way forward is the barred snack setup that our hosts use and everything that they need to do business, right? And they have their own little private stairwell here, so they can run up and down directly into the kitchen and bring up hot cookies or hot scones, that kind of thing, when we're serving snacks. So they also have their whole PA system up there as well. The staircase and the lift is a little bit towards the back of the train, so you can't actually see it in this photo. So let me explain the meal. So as soon as we get rolling in the morning, half the coach upstairs will go downstairs for their breakfast. So you're thinking, okay, well, I'm going to have to wait for breakfast. I'm going to be hungry, but no. Those hosts will be bringing up those hot scones and coffees and teas and juices. So you'll get your first course of your breakfast upstairs, and then 3 more when you get downstairs. So don't worry about being hungry. And then if you're first sitting the first day, you'll be second sitting the second day. Same thing for lunch. They'll start pouring wines, bringing out hors d'oeuvre trays, and you'll have a first lunch course upstairs before you go downstairs. If you have a need to eat at the same time every day, just let John and his team know, and we can accommodate that, any special dietary needs that you have. So this is a look at what the downstairs dining room looks like. We have tables for 4 and tables for 2. They look slightly different from this right now in that we've put up plexiglass walls between the booths just for COVID's sake. So just know that we're taking every precaution on these trains available to us. So you have a menu to select from. So you have 4 or 5 entrees to choose from. There's always vegetarian on the menu. So you have waiters that will come by, take your order, and the hot things will be cooked fresh after you order it and delivered to you as soon as it's ready, so it stays hot. So it's a wonderful dining experience. And again, that viewing platform, everybody really enjoys that. So, this is unique to Rocky Mountaineer, and you can only find them on our Gold Leaf trains. So, once we leave the station, we'll have a big send-off. You'll toast your fellow travelers. On the train, it's very social. So you'll find that people don't stay in their seats. They're wandering back and forth, looking at the sights on either side of the train. And we'll start out in Vancouver. We'll go through some very verdant valleys where they grow grapes and fruits and vegetables. And then we'll hit the coastal mountains and then carry on into the Cascade Mountains. So all along we're following rivers. When you realize that these tracks were built, in the late 1800s, that's how they traversed the landscape, was by following the rivers, because the rivers had already carved a path through these mountains. And there's some spectacular sights along the way. This bottom left-hand picture is Hell's Gate. Where, we can't stop the train on the tracks, but we'll slow down to Kodak speed so you can take pictures, and we'll give you warnings ahead of time. So also I should note that all the employees on our trains are mic'd up. They've got these little earbuds in their ears. And so if anyone from one of the train conductors to a guest to a host spots wildlife, the whole train set knows about it immediately. And so they'll just say, okay, everybody look to the right, there's a bear and her cub, that kind of thing. So, it gets pretty exciting on the train. So at the end of the day, I should point out too that, after you get out of the Cascade Mountains, it's very much like the geology is like the US. So you come to an almost desert-like area that's full of these red canyons, and it comes into the town of Kamloops. So Kamloops is actually where we own our own train sets, so they all live there, that's where our yard is. And so, we come into this little town of Kamloops, and it's where 2 branches of a river come together, and it's a vibrant little town where they have lots of parks you can walk to, and your hotels will be right downtown where you can, walk to these great the and venues. If you're there and you like a good brewski, I highly recommend the Pig restaurant. So it's called the Noble Pig Brew Pub. So again, while you've had 2 great meals and snacks during the day on the train, a lot of people say, I'm too hungry when I get off the train to eat a full dinner. So they'll go to like the Noble Pig and get a bowl of soup, in a cocktail or a wine or a big glass of iced tea, whatever. So, but again, remember I said you're going to, get off the train. You're going to have the keys before you get off. You're going to be whisked to your hotel, which is only 4 or 5 blocks away at most. and you'll walk into your hotel room, and there you'll find your bag. So you don't have to waste time checking into a hotel. You can go right out and hit the streets. So anyway, I do want to point out in Kamloops that we don't know your hotel ahead of time. It's a fine dance our inventory people have to play to make sure that the right cars line up with the right hotels and the right motor coaches, but they're all very similar. But like I said, there are no luxury hotels in this town. So you're going to be staying in a lodge of some sort. But I guarantee you're going to have fun there. So the next morning, you're going to pack your bag, leave it in your hotel room again, and we're going to whisk you off to the train. Well, you'll join your fellow travelers for your second day of your train trip. So, you know, it's such a, like, I think this picture is good because the host is probably entertaining them and doing a toast and telling them stories, and many of them are quite amusing, but they'll be telling you about the geology and the history and what the original pioneers went through to go out to the West Coast, as well as what the indigenous peoples were like as well. So you'll get back on, you already know each other, and you're going to follow these rivers again. And this is a lot what the day looks like, because you'll be leaving Kamloops, which is a little bit more arid, and pretty quickly starting to climb towards the Rocky Mountains. You'll be following these rivers and traversing back and forth. People ask me, what's the best side of the train to sit on? And there is no good side. I mean, they're both the best side because you're going back and forth. You know, sometimes you'll have a mountain on one side and sometimes the river, and then you'll go across and it'll be the opposite. So this is much of what it looks like. Along the way, we'll be passing very slowly by Craigellachie, and you'll be hearing stories about the building of the Canadian Pacific Railroad. And this is actually the spot where they pounded in that last spike. So it's an historical spot. And along the way, starting from day one, you'll be hearing about the competition of CP and CN Rail, you know, trying to be the first to go out to the West Coast. And this piece of track between Kamloops and the Canadian Rockies, only Rocky Mountaineer were the only passenger train allowed to travel on this particular piece of track. So this whole day, we do share it with freight trains, but you know, it is just spectacular, one-of-a-kind scenery. So like, here's a little shot of the train. This is in the Vermilion Lakes area. One thing I learned, I've worked in Alaska for 20 years, working for a cruise line, and I was up there all the time. And I didn't realize that salmon spawn all the way up into the base of the Canadian Rockies. So these Vermilion Lakes, when you're going, I think in late August, there will be some salmon runs there. And what's great about that, because you're following the rivers and going across these lakes, you're going to see the salmon spawning, and that'll bring out the wildlife for the free smorgasbord. So that's always, you know, quite entertaining. So, I wanted to point out too, this train right now, you know, if you're going eastbound like you guys are doing, you're headed into the western slopes. So there is a piece of the mountains there that CP tried for, you know, almost 20 years trying to safely get over the pass. It's Kicking Horse Pass, which is right at the Continental Divide. And they really couldn't master it. So I think they brought some Swiss engineers over who were used to building a lot of railroads through mountains, and they engineered what we call the spiral tunnels. So on this trip, you will actually be traveling on these spiral tunnels, which were engineered perfectly in like between 1903 and 1906 by Swiss engineers without computers. I'll never understand how they did it, but they started at the top and from the bottom, and the spirals met perfectly inside the mountains in the middle. So you'll go into a mountain, you'll spiral inside that mountain and come out more towards the top of the mountain. Then you'll spiral into the base of another mountain and spiral inside up higher, and that's how you get over the pass. So it's really, you know, something that not very many people get to do, since we're the only train allowed to go through it. And then once you do that, and you go through some more mountains, things flatten out. And once you see Castle Mountain here, you know you're almost home to Lake Louise. So after that second day, you'll be, whoops, I don't think I can. John, do you have any experience with videos? Do they play okay? Or I guess it depends on everybody's internet
They
connection.
seem to.
Okay, let me show a short video of what this route looks like. So it may drag a
As the
little bit
vibrancy of
depending on your
Vancouver
internet
slowly
speed.
evaporates in the distance, the majestic coast mountains rise up to greet you. And you find yourself on a historic journey that retraces the route of the great 19th century explorers. Let your imagination travel along with the first pioneers, across rushing rivers, through magnificent canyons, alongside sheer rock faces, but with the unparalleled luxury and service the early explorers could never dream of. Marvel in awe as you cut through ancient gray-green volcanic rocks that are 200 million years old. Well, give or take a million. Now you find yourself back in 1885 at Craigellachie, the famous site of the last spike, where Canada's east and west were finally united by 3,200 kilometers of track. With vivid historic imagery still in your mind, the awe-inspiring natural beauty continues to unfold before your eyes. Like those who came before you, your journey follows the Kicking Horse River deep into the breathtaking Canadian Rockies. Here's your chance to bring out your inner landscape photographer. Next up, the legendary spiral tunnels, which opened in 1909. Twist your way through the engineering marvel that proved to be the most difficult terrain to break on Canada's railroad. By now, you're as steeped in history as the vertical drops of the magnificent mountains you pass by. Postcard images continue to appear around every bend until eventually, world-famous Banff comes into view. And you're left wondering how it's possible to travel both forwards and backwards in time. The first passage to the west. Now, who says you can't travel through time?
Okay, I hope that played okay for you. I know it varies depending on internet speed, but so this is where you're going to spend your next night. So you spent the night before in Kamloops, and you had your second day on the train, and here you are at Lake Louise. And I know probably over the years you've seen many pictures of this spectacular lake. And we'll be spending the night at the Fairmont Chateau Lake Louise. You know, it's just a beautiful castle-like building that the railroad built, you know, way back in the day in order to entice people from the eastern side of Canada out to the west. So these parks around here were the first national parks that Canada designated, and they did their best to entice people out there. And the people who did come, you know, what spectacular scenery. These lakes are all over the place. You know, there are hundreds of them, and you'll see many of them. I wanted to show you this picture because there are rooms on every side of this chateau. If you don't have a room facing the lake, rest assured that all the public rooms do face the lake. This is a picture I shot at twilight at one of the bars looking out onto the lake. The dining rooms are the same way, and a lot of sitting rooms and card rooms and that sort of thing. But it's a great place to really get outdoors. You can, I want to mention that you could actually, there are hiking trails around the lake. So in August, you know, if you're up to it, you can go for a canoe ride. But I have to tell you, this lake doesn't thaw out until the first week in June every year. So it's pretty cold water, but there's a hike up to a tea room with a great platform for viewing up there. So if you're up for that, that is a great thing to do. So the next day, we're going to take you out on a tour. So what's really great about this area is not just the hotels or the towns, you know, you're there for the national parks and the scenery. You know, I take travel agents up there all the time and they say, oh, this looks just like Switzerland. And it's very similar, except the altitude here is lower. The altitude is lower than our Colorado Rockies. So I found that to be a benefit now that I'm aging, to be, you know, hiking around or walking around in a lower altitude. But you'll see so many fabulous sights that nature has created for us. And then we're going to stop and have lunch at Emerald Lake Lodge. So this is one of my favorite lodges up there. It's in the middle of nowhere, and this particular lake is aptly named. So instead of being real turquoise, it's really a deep, deep green. It's really great, and everything is so serene. So you'll have this little complex here with a great restaurant that looks out over these mountains and lakes, and have your lunch there. It's a great place to really unwind. And then once you finish all your touring and your lunch, we'll drop you off in downtown Banff. So Banff National Park was actually the very first UNESCO protected park. Since then, all these parks in the surrounding area have been designated as UNESCO. So they're very careful about preserving everything in these parks. So when you go down the highway into Banff, you'll notice what looks like parks going over the tops of the highway, the Icefields Parkway. And that's for the wildlife, so they can safely get over the highway without getting hit. So their migration patterns and hunting patterns are not disturbed. So it's a beautiful area. Your hotel is right here on Main Street. So Banff has this one main street with great little shops and pubs and fun things to do. And you're going to be staying at the Banff Caribou Lodge and Spa. And one thing I like about this particular property is they give you a free pass for Rome. So Rome is a hop-on, hop-off bus that goes up and down Main Street. Plus, it goes out to some trailheads. Here's a little picture I found of Rome. It's not very clear, but this is what it looks like. It's obvious when it comes by. You just hop on and hop off wherever you want to. You can go out to the Fairmont Banff Springs Hotel, have a cocktail or, you know, have dinner there if you want to. And it also takes you out to these trailheads if you just, you know, want to wander along the river and into some of the wilderness areas. So you'll overnight there, and the next day we're going to pick you up and we're going to take you up on this sky ride that takes you to the top of this mountain that overlooks. On one side, this is the Bow Valley where the town of Banff is. And on the other side, when you get to the top, you'll look out over mountaintops and ice fields as far as the eye can see. It will just take your breath away. And there is a natural history museum on the, you know, at the top where the tram stops. And there's a Starbucks and a couple of little restaurants up there. So people have a hard time tearing themselves away from it and coming back down the mountain again. It's a must see. So after we do that, we'll tour down the Icefields Parkway again, a couple of hours. It will take us to get into Calgary. And as we come into Calgary, we're going to stop at Heritage Park. This is a living history museum, and it's on a confluence of two different rivers, and there'll be lots of things to explore and do, but we'll have a great lunch here as well. So they are limiting the amount of people in there these days, but so don't feel like there's going to be crowds there, but everybody says they enjoy this park. So there's so many interesting people working there, docents that can tell you, you know, all about the history of Western Canada. So here's Calgary, like Vancouver, very metropolitan center, but very easy to get into the outdoors. So this town, I've been going here for years, and it sort of reminded me in the early years of Houston. You know, they're known for, at one time, it was the world's largest rodeo. It's all about, I think Houston's is larger now, but they still do this every year. But, you know, there's a lot of travel between Houston and Calgary because of oil and cattle. But downtown, we'll be staying right downtown and within walking distance of museums and art galleries. And you'll find art on almost every corner downtown in this city. So we'll be staying at the Delta, which is a Marriott hotel. That's just around in Canada. So it'll be in the heart of everything. And I have one little 1-minute video that has no talking in it, just to remind you of the sites that you will see when traveling in Canadian Rockies.